AEW legends Jerry Lynn and Mikey Whipwreck. Now, let's welcome your host, Mike Freland.
Welcome to another Tuesday night of Front Row Material. My name is Mike Freland, and I am joined by my esteemed, incredible co-host. His name is
the Ritt.
Rittster. How you doing, buddy?
Not bad, Mike. Just been busy working. You know, getting the old calendar filled out for the rest of the year. It is complete.
Nice.
Future Stars Now is good until January 1st.
Wow, that is awesome. That is huge, huge, huge. I did want to mention something to you. I feel bad for you, bud. It's been a great run with your boys. But the Sox, I mean, how do you feel with all that going on right now?
Not as bad as you do with those freaking Jets. It's football season now. That's all it's worried about. As soon as Game 5 was over, or actually no, Game 6. Game 6 was over and the Red Sox were eliminated. I went outside, took down my Red Sox flag, packed it up until spring of next year. And well, it is football season, and the Giants beat Carolina. No one predicted it, and we are on the way.
Well, you guys beat that. What's that guy? That Sam Darnold guy? That guy never had it. What a schmo. I tell you what, whoever picked that guy. What a schmuck. Unbelievable. You feeling good about the Giants, though?
No.
Just probably the same way I'm feeling about my Jets.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not feeling that bad.
It's not good, man. This is not good. It's another bad year. Another bad year for the Jets, Jets. But yeah.
Hey, it's a good time tonight for Future Stars Now.
Indeed it is. It's a great night for wrestling. Tell them who we got on the show tonight.
We have a longtime listener to the show. He listened to the show back when it was good.
Oh my God. That's tremendous. I love it. You mean when we had those two old farts? Those two old farts?
Who were they?
I don't even know who they are. One guy was a member of the Three Stooges, and the other guy used to be like Mr. High Flying, and now he's just, I don't know.
Man. Hey, who was it? On Twitter, somebody was sitting there and said that, I think it was Preston Vance had the nicest ass in AEW. Jade said that. And I had to comment. I'm like, I don't think you've ever seen Jerry Lynn's sweet ass.
Have you seen Jerry Lynn's ass before, my friend? Yeah. I'm telling you, in a completely heterosexual way. I mean, you could bounce quarters off that thing. I mean, you could play canasta on that ass. It's a nice ass.
Oh, man. But
no Moondog around, so that probably fell on deaf ears.
Exactly. But, man, he is a indie superstar. He knows Mikey very close and personal. What we're going to do is we're going to bring in longtime listener, first time on the show, and a very successful independent wrestler, Mr. Johnny Moran.
It's Johnny Moran, by the way.
Yes. I was throwing the accent for
Moran.
Moran.
I get chanted Moran usually when they hate me, so that kind of works. But yeah, I've been listening for a very long time. I was actually at training with Mikey Whipwreck. I don't know if he was talking to you, Mike, or if he was talking to Jerry, but I remember he was looking at his phone and he's like, Moran, run this for a second. And I just took over the drills for 2 minutes. And then he came back in the ring and he was like, I think I'm doing a podcast. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, what? What? And then, he's like, all right, it's next week. You got to listen to it. And I'm like, I will. And then I've been listening ever since. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate your loyalty to this. Yeah. If you follow the show, obviously, you know that good friend Mikey Whipwreck, you took a little sabbatical. Wrestling takes its toll on you. And there's a 2-part episode. If you guys didn't get a chance to check it out, 2-part episode where Mikey really goes in depth and talks about everything that's happened with him, and he opens up a lot. And it really opened your eyes to the fact that wrestling as great as it is for us fans to watch it, I mean, for the performers, we have no clue. We have no concept of everything that happens. And that's why I have so much respect for what you guys do, because, man, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Thank you. Really do appreciate that.
Well, Johnny, since you've been a long time listener, next week's the big 3-year anniversary special we're having.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome to be doing this for 3 years. You know what I mean? Like it's a hard road. Even just doing a podcast, like people just think, oh, he just clicks on a button and just starts talking. Like it's not that simple.
There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, but
I wish it was that simple.
Right?
Oof.
So let's kind of dig into here from the very get-go. What was your first introduction to wrestling itself? I mean, what was your first memory as far as seeing it? How did that all come about?
I have an older brother, James. He's 10 years older than me. So when I was an infant, he used to like joke with me and like give me his like LJN, like Hulk Hogan's and like Paul Orndorff's and stuff. And like, I literally still have the Hulk Hogan LJN somewhere here, and it's got like teeth mark because I was like teething on it.
Yep.
So like I always idolized my brother James when I was growing up because he was just this monster of a human when I was a little kid. So he had like all the WWF magazines. He had Saturday Night Main Event like tape. Like I can't tell you how many times I watched Macho Man versus Hulk Hogan with James Buster Douglas as the referee. And I was just obsessed. Like I had the lunchbox. Like I was Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior for like Halloween. Like I've always wanted to do this. I remember like the moment I really like decided like I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. I remember I was at my grandma's and a guy by the name of Stunning Steve Austin was wrestling Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and I didn't know his name at the time. And I just saw a Dragon Slayer on his butt and Dragon Slayer on his boots. And I kept asking my mom, I'm like, I want my hair cut like the Dragon Slayer. Like I had no idea what his name was. I was like, Mom, the Dragon Slayer, I want my hair cut like that. And she's like, yeah, your aunt will cut your hair like that. I'm like, can I get his toy? Like, can I get his toy? They never made the toy. So like every Christmas I would ask for this Dragon Slayer toy and never got it. I'm 33 years old. Never got a Dragon Slayer toy. I'm a little upset. I think Steve Austin owes me a Dragon Slayer toy. And then like it's crazy because like when I got older and like started watching the Attitude Era, I had no idea that the Dragon Slayer was Stone Cold Steve Austin when I was a little kid. So that like blew my mind the day I forget what DVD it came out and like that match was on there. I'm like, no way, like that's him back then. And like I kind of knew the ECW thing because I remember seeing the promos that he did in ECW, but I like YouTube wasn't hot like it is now, like when I was in like high school and stuff. So like when I was in college, that's where I kind of like found out like, oh my God, like this guy that was my favorite wrestler like my whole life. So like Steve Austin is pretty much the reason I'm in this business.
So, obviously you start off a WWF fan, and then you get introduced to WCW. Mm-hmm. Did you have as much love for WCW? I know you had love for Steve, but was there as much love for WCW, or was it just mainly WWF and then the Dragon Slayer?
Oddly enough, the Saturday Night Main Event, I don't know why, I was just drawn to the Brain Busters. I loved the Brain Busters. And my brother had Starrcade 87. It's the only NWA tape he had. And they were the Four Horsemen on there. And I'm like, the whole time, every time I'd watch that tape, I'm like, why are they not calling them the Brain Busters? Like, why? Like, and why? I remember like NWA was like so much darker. I'm like, why is it so dark in there? And like, I loved it, but like there were so many like contrasting things. And I just had that one tape. And I'm pretty sure it was just, I don't think it turned over to WCW yet. I'm pretty sure it was still NWA at that point in 87 because I would go over my grandma's and I would see WCW and I would never click that, except Ric Flair. Like Ric Flair, I was like, Ric Flair for some reason can go back and forth, and like that's the only person I'm like, why is Tully and Arn? Why aren't they calling them the Brainbusters? So I did like anything wrestling. I just fell in love with. The first pay-per-view I ever saw was WrestleMania 8. So that
Hoosier
one's, yeah, it's still like anytime everybody's like, oh, what's your favorite WrestleMania? And like, I always go to that because like that like I watched those tapes like so many times. Like we got it illegally when we were kids on the box that was at my aunt's. Yeah. And we taped it. So I always had that tape. So like I watched WrestleMania 8 like 30,000 times. Like Bret Hart and Roddy Piper is like one of my favorite matches.
Gold.
Right? Such a good match. But I loved all wrestling. When I was a kid, I just didn't understand like why some people weren't on both shows. I'm like, well, why are they allowed to go on both shows, but this guy isn't? But yeah, no, I did have the love. I was never one to be like, oh no, I can't watch WCW like when the Monday Night Wars were happening. Me and my friends that I grew up with were kind of really hardcore wrestling fans. So like, if I always watched Raw, so I would tape Raw, and then my other friend Joe would always watch WCW, and he would tape that 3 hours, and we would just trade every day or every Tuesday.
Wow, you guys you had DVR before DVR was a thing. You had the first ever DVR system.
Yeah. And then you just fast forward through the commercials.
So Johnny, well, what was your first little tidbit of watching ECW? And what did you think about that?
It's funny. My grandmother basically like took care of me and I have 2 nieces. I have another brother that's 20 years older than me. So when he was 18, he had a daughter in high school. So my niece is kind of like my sister. So they live literally like a block behind me. So my grandmother would take me over there every day after school until my brother Joe got out of work. And randomly, I remember ECW was on, and it was like after school time. And I remember seeing ECW, and we like fell in love with Rey Mysterio. Another guy, didn't know the name. We just called him Question Mark Guy because he had the questions. Like, like when you're a kid, you're just like, and like my niece like used to love him. She's like, where's that little Question Mark Guy? I'm like, I don't know. He's not on this week. But I fell in love with Shane Douglas in ECW. And then my little brother, Dave, he fell in love with, oddly enough, Mikey Whipwreck. And he was Davey Whipwreck when we wrestled in the basement. And I would beat the living hell out of him. And he's like, he would wear his long johns because he thought Whipwreck wore long johns, like those white long johns. And he would wear shorts over them. He's like, look, I have his gear. Not gear, but he's like, look, I have his clothes. And like, he had like I had one tie-dye shirt. And he's like, he has a tie-dye shirt too. I got his whole look. And he would wear his bandana backwards. Like, so my brother really loved. So like the day Mikey came to PPW to train us, like, man, my little brother's like, is he as cool as he was when I was a kid? I'm like, he's even better. He's like the funniest guy you'll ever meet in your life. He's like,
this is true.
Man, I just want to come down and talk to him. And I'm like, I know. I'm like, if you want to come down one time, like, just come down and talk to him. And then like he became a listener just to hear like the Mikey Whipwreck, like not in the ring stuff. And like, he's like, he is as funny as you say he is. And I'm like, I swear to God, he like training with him, like, I would say 90% of training with him, I'd be in tears laughing because he would just get me to crack up like all the time. Like he would do his Andre impression and like I still hear it in my head and like it makes, and then his Terry Funk impression is like second to none. Like the saloon door story is like my favorite story he's ever told me. I love Mikey. He's one of my favorite people.
Well, if you love all his impersonations,
Mm-hmm.
I would love for you to sit there and just stay back in Gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
Once we're done,
yeah,
we'll sit there and we'll play the infamous "I'm Too Sexy" video.
Have you heard "I'm Too Sexy"?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
The video is just him. And it's like, I'm like, how? Like,
he goes into Piper. He just morphs into these people and he becomes them.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget who in training, like, just threw somebody hard and then he just went, and he went, I am Andre the Giant. He just like went all into this. And I'm in tears, like just laughing. And like, I like a lot of the time I would be just on the floor rolling because he would like just have me in stitches laughing.
I know Mikey would definitely. I know Mikey loves doing the seminars, and I would love to see him back on the seminar circuit.
Oh yeah,
because I think there's so much that he could share with this next generation of wrestlers as well. Because it's funny because the 6 degrees of Mikey Whipwreck, which it's a take on the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah. It's everywhere. Everything ties back into him and all this stuff. And everything that you're saying, Jay Lethal has said as well. And it's crazy to know the impact and influence that somebody has, but how profound it is. And a lot of people don't really understand that, the lineage of who knows who and who was trained by who, and that entire bloodline, if you will. You talk about the Heenan family. I mean, what about the Whipwreck family? It's a pretty, it's a pretty large one. But let me ask you about ECW as well. I mean, it was kind of a raunchier, vulgar type of style of wrestling. So when you were younger and you discovered this, at what point in time did you realize this ain't WWF superstars?
When you see Francine coming out and my niece is like questioning what's going on there with like the short skimpy skirt, and I'm like, I don't know, but you're not allowed to wear that, so don't worry about it. Like,
great teaching moment.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, you don't get boyfriends and all that stuff, like, because I'm the older brother in that aspect. But yeah, and then like the tables and stuff, like you didn't see that in WWE. Or WCW at that point, really. I mean, I know they had I missed that part where like Terry Funk had that like I Quit match with Ric Flair. Like I didn't see that until like later on. So like I didn't even know WCW had like that mild, like, kind of ECW style for that like little while where Terry was there. But we definitely knew it was different. And I remember my niece saying like, why does those other wrestling stuff you watch have the mats on the outside? And I'm like, I don't know, like this is different, this one's different. Like I'm like, everyone's different. And then she's like, why are they different, why wouldn't they be the same? And I'm like, well, that's the point. Like arguing with her with that would always be funny to me.
Yeah, I remember Mikey saying, we don't have the mats because we're not like them, we're hardcore. And they were hardcore. I mean, the matches they would put on, the brutality they would put their bodies through. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that a 5-year career in ECW is probably, from a physicality standpoint, equivalent to 15 or 20 years taking traditional bumps just in a ring.
Definitely. I remember the wrap-ups they would have at the end where everybody would like cut little like 10-second promos. I remember I used to love that. Like, even as a kid, and they had that like, isn't it like the Quentin Tarantino music or something?
Yep.
Like overlaid on it.
Yep.
That for some reason always hooked me in. So like immediately when I would get over there, I would like, if we missed all the matches, like all I wanted to see was that end where they would do like the little like 10-second promos, and like, they would always be like in different spots. Like it wouldn't be always like just in front of like a backdrop. Like some guys would be outside, some people would be in a parking lot. Like it was always different and unique. I really, that always stood out to me as a kid.
I was talking to, I think you've heard this story before, Ritt, but Jerry Lynn, after he wrestled, I forget who he wrestled for at one point, but he got a phone call and he was going to come in to do, I don't know if it's a tryout or whatever for ECW. And I remember Jerry said, I'm in my hotel room. And I said, we were watching this ECW stuff. And he goes, that is one company I am never going to work for. Like, no chance. No, look what they're doing. This is ridiculous. Yeah. And he goes, then I end up working for him. But ECW had its brawlers, and then they had its technical wrestlers as well.
Mhm.
They had so many things that appealed to so many different people. I think that's what made it so interesting.
Oh, definitely. No, I completely agree.
So you decide that you're in love with wrestling now. You're coming across this stuff. You're still, I would say, more in Camp WWE at that time,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, definitely.
So when did you start really doing your home wrestling? Was that always a thing even before wrestling started, or did that just
Yeah.
kind of ramp up? Or
When I was a kid, man, like it was just me and my brother, and we would just play like different characters. Like he also would call himself like Davy Funk, but like I was always the franchise Johnny Moran. Like that, I stole chained up. I used to have like beads I would put on myself, so I pretended to have like a robe, or like I would get my house coat on, and like I cut the sleeves off of one, and my mom like wanted to murder me because like it was like an expensive one, but he didn't
Wow.
have sleeves. So like I was like, and that's like the robe I wear is like homage to Shane Douglas, because that's where I got the idea for the robe. But it was always like when you're a kid, like you just want to be all your favorite wrestlers, you know.
Well, hopefully in the basement when your brother was trying to be Mikey, you didn't
Mm-hmm.
pull a Johnny Simmons and give him the old drop pie down in the basement.
He took a spine buster through a cardboard box once, and
wow,
yeah. Like anytime we would get like something that we got a cardboard box, it was like immediately we like our parents would be like, "Where'd the box go?" And we were like, "Oh," and it would be in like the back room of the basement. And then like as soon as like everybody was like my mom was doing something and my dad was doing something else, we were like, let's hit the music, because we always played like music for entrances and stuff.
the music.
I was like, let's hit the music and do this quick. And then like we would have our little match, and I'd put him through a box, or he'd put me through a box, and like it's just stuff you did as a kid, you know.
So you said you knew pretty early on that this is what you wanted to do. Do you remember the first time you told your folks that this was something you wanted to do, and did they think it was a phase? Did they take it seriously, or do you think at that point in time they had a pretty good idea that you were pretty sincere about it?
I didn't tell them until I had my first match. The entire time I trained, like I did not. Yeah, I didn't tell my mom.
Whoa.
Because I figured
you kayfabed your family.
Oh yeah. They just thought I was at the gym for like stupid amount of time, I guess, because like I've always been into weightlifting and like powerlifting and stuff. So like I assume they just thought like Thursdays and Tuesdays I was just like at the gym for like 6 hours. Like I don't know what they thought I was doing, but they never said anything. And then I remember my first match, they put me on like a poster, and I'm like, crap. I'm like, the jig is up. Like this is gonna get floated around social media. And like my mom just started using Facebook, and I'm like, if somebody sees this and says, "What's your son doing?" I'm like, I gotta come clean. So like I remember I told my mom and my dad, I'm like, listen, I'm wrestling now. And like the deal was like my parents always told me like you can do it like once you finish college. So like as soon as I finished college, like I started looking for wrestling schools, and that's when I found Backbreakers Training Center that was in Scranton. That's where I started. And you know, like I just didn't tell them because I don't know. I was worried, like, especially when I was training, like, what if I'm not good? And like, you know, this was just like a dumb dream that like I never should have did. So I just kind of hid it from them. And then that I remember that poster came out. I'm like, God dang it. Like, I have to tell them now. I have to tell them. So like I told them, and they're like, well, when's your first show? And I'm like, oh, I don't know when it is yet, but it'll happen soon. Like I didn't want them to come to my first one. Like they didn't come until, and this is a crazy story. So like, this is probably my third match. And I had a friend that like looked out for me, and like we were good friends since we were little kids. And I wrestled for a company by the name of Big Time Wrestling. And it was going to be at the CYC in Scranton. This is where I went to see WWF as a kid. So I'm like, and they're like, you have to sell tickets, you know. So I'm selling tickets to all my family, everything. Now the whole day, I'm gonna be in a 6-man with this other tag team that I've worked 1,000 times, not 1,000 times, probably like 3 times at this point, but like I trained with these guys. So
Right.
I'm comfortable as all can be. So we get there, and the guy, Mike Mitchell, that's my friend forever and ever, he was like, hey, plans changed. He goes, it's going to be a 6-man now, and Jesse's going to be with you, and your partner is going to be with us. So it was, I'm like, wait, so who else is with us? And he's like, Shane. And I'm like, Shane who? Who's Shane? Like, I'm freaking out now because, like, so probably 4 matches before this, I've only wrestled Jesse and Keto the Impeccables. And I've only teamed with my partner. So now I got this new guy, Shane, I don't know. Jesse, that I normally work all the time. So this is like my first time working. I'm working my friend Mike. So I knew Mike, like, no matter what's going to take care of me. Like, whatever I do, Mike's going to make sure I'm not looking stupid out there. And his partner, John, always looked out for me. And then my partner, Dan. So I'm like comfortable with whatever I'm doing. But I'm like, who's this Shane guy? So I go up to the promoter. I'm like, hey, so it's a 6-man now? And then the promoter's like, yeah, Shane's in the back if you want to talk to him. And he's like, locker room number 3 or whatever. Because, like, it's separated in the CYC. There's multiple locker rooms. So I open the locker room door, go in. The franchise Shane Douglas is sitting there in a chair.
No
And I'm
fucking
like,
way.
right? And he goes, hi, Shane. I'm like, John, like, I don't know who the fuck you are. Like,
Oh man.
he's like, are you who I'm teaming with tonight? And I'm like, I guess, because the other person in that locker room is Sabu, and he's pacing back and forth because he's wrestling Rob Van Dam that night. So, like, he's just walking in circles, and he's like, "Did you seen Rob yet?" And I'm like, yeah. He's I think he's down doing autographs with the rest of them in the basement." He's like, and then Sabu's like, "Oh shit, they're doing autographs already?" And then Shane was like, "Yeah, like for an hour now, Sabu. Like, you want to get down there?" Like, he's like, "I'm all done." He's like, "I'm getting ready. We're like match 2." And he's like, "Kid, what do you do?" And I'm like, he's like, "How many matches have you had?" And I'm like, 4. And then, like, oh man, like, it was crazy because, like, now mind you, like, my dad has passed since this, so this is the only match my dad has ever seen. But, like, my dad watched me team with Shane Douglas, which I've idolized since I was a little kid, and, like, my dad knew who he was, and, like, my whole family's watching. My uncle that used to take me to the CYC's watching. So, like, it was just like the craziest moment I ever had in wrestling. And, like, especially being like your 4th match, like, it just was mind blowing. And then he gave me like a big hug after it, and he like whispered like in your ear, he's like, "You did a great job, kid." He's like, "You got a bright future. Like,
Wow.
congratulations." I'm like, "Thanks, man." Like, and then I whispered back, I'm like, "You have no idea how much it means to me to be in this ring with you." And he's like, "Thank you for that." And then even after the match, he like sat with us all, like everybody that was in the match, for 30 minutes. Ken Anderson watched our match. He gave us tips after the match too. Like, it was, I remember like leaving that, and I'm like, man, I'm so happy I did this. Like, I'm so happy I got into wrestling.
What are the odds?
Right? And I'm like, who the hell is this Shane guy in my
Who's
head?
this
I'm like,
Shane guy
fuck him.
stomping around?
Yeah.
You go talk to him.
Yeah. Go open the
Wow.
door, and I'm like, shit. And like, Mike knew it was Shane Douglas, but he didn't want to tell me. And he let me go in the door first. So, like, he kind of ribbed me with that. But I was like, thank you for not telling me, because I don't think I could have walked in that door if I knew who Shane was.
So what was you more nervous about? Going out there in front of this crowd in the 6-man, or actually teaming with Shane Douglas?
Teaming with Shane Douglas, not gonna lie. That the crowd was huge that night. I remember how big the crowd was, but like, that didn't phase me. I did high school plays. I was in like, I've done powerlifting meets. So like, crowds never really affected me, because I kind of lost that like effective, like, a lot. Like, I get more uncomfortable when I'm around like 2 or 3 people. I always like, I'm more awkward when it's a couple people, but like when it's a huge audience, I'm completely fine. I can make an ass of myself and just like be okay with that. Like, but like being next to Shane Douglas and like literally I'm on the apron with him, he's telling me stuff to do, and I'm like, oh, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? Like, how is this happening? And like, that was really the first time I'm like, you have to be a professional now, and like you're trying to like snap yourself out of it like the whole time. And like even when it was over, I'm like, shit, was I dreaming? Like, was this real? Like, you know?
I mean, you're idolizing Shane Douglas. You're having matches as Shane Douglas. You're cutting
Yeah.
sleeves off of jackets like Shane Douglas. And then all of a sudden, here you are, the tag team partner of the franchise, Shane Douglas. It's like,
yeah,
you could retire that night, and I'm pretty sure you would have said, my career, success.
Exactly. I always tell people that I'm like, my dad got to see me and my mom like wrestle with Shane Douglas. Like, there's not much more I could have done. And then even like, oddly enough, I just have weird scenarios like this happen like through my career. Like the first time I had WWE extra work, Stone Cold Steve Austin is doing a podcast with Edge and Christian. I'm at catering. I'm getting salmon, and like, not gonna lie, the salmon was really good. So I got myself 2 pieces, and I just turn, and he's doing like the walk to the ring walk, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Steve Austin, like walking towards me. No one's behind me in line.
He saw you take that second piece.
So hang on, we'll get there. He looks at me and he goes, "Is the salmon that good, kid? Should I get 2?" And I'm like, yeah, I go, it's actually my 3rd. And then he goes, keeping high protein. I like that. And then he just was like, he's like, I'm gonna get 2 just because you got 2. And then he put 2 on his, and I'm like, holy shit, I just talked to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, like there's another time I was just like, wow. Like,
the Dragon Slayer.
Right? The goddamn Dragon Slayer. And I didn't even say it.
Man, it seems like everything's full circle.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everything so far with you, and later on tonight, it's a theme for the night.
Yeah.
Coming full circle.
Yeah.
You know, you being younger, you got Shane Douglas. You know, you got, you know, you're giving dinner advice.
Yeah.
How many people can sit there and say, "Hey, I gave Stone Cold some dinner advice," you know?
Yeah.
Told him he had to bulk up in the protein. Get 2 slices.
I mean, Jesus, I wouldn't have said that. I was just like, "Oh, it's really good, sir."
You just seem to be the guy at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's that. Especially in those 2 moments, I like lucked out. I really lucked out, and like I just, you know, one of the guys I also trained at the Sanctuary after I trained at Backbreakers to get like some different training. John, his name is John Trosky, that runs that. He always calls me the Forrest Gump. He's like, you randomly just meet your idols and be at the right spot at the right time. I was at another big time wrestling event, and like I always love Ric Flair too. And
here we go.
Yeah, Ric Flair is like, he's just like cutting this promo and like with Steamboat, and then he comes back through, and there's this wrestling team, and he like comes over, he's like, Richard. Richard. like I love when they come up and introduce themselves to me. I'm just like, you don't even have to say your name. I know who you are. And
he gave you his government name.
Yeah, he's like, Richard. I'm just like, holy crap. And then that night, Steamboat watched my match, and they just gave me like such a good critique, and like, man, like it's just wild, like some of the stuff that I randomly end up in situations with, you know.
Did you end up telling Ricky the Dragon Slayer stuff? No.
Yes, I did, and he like kind of giggled, and he was like, "Well," he's like, "I wish you loved my yellow outfit," and I'm like, "I remember your yellow outfit, but I don't know what it was about Steve that I liked the Dragon Slayer for some reason." He's like, "He did have cool hair then." He's like, "He doesn't anymore," and I was like, "He doesn't. He has no hair."
Oh my gosh. It is crazy all the different stories that you have.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you start wrestling, obviously, my condolences obviously to your family,
Thank you.
for your dad. But I will say this, once again, everything happens for a reason, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
And it was meant for your dad to be in the stands in that arena that night to see you walk out with Shane Douglas, to have an amazing moment. And that was meant to happen. Yeah. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind. Yeah. And I think that is so cool on a wrestling perspective, but a father-son perspective is even cooler. So I'm really glad that you shared that.
Yeah. No. Thank you. Like it really was like, and that's like the match he got to see. So like, I always tell people like, I didn't do a lot in that match, but like every time I, tell that story, I'm like, the most important thing is like, I'm in there with Shane. I'm in there with my friends I trained with, the one friend that I've been friends with since we were like in college. And we both decided to start this wrestling journey together. And like the guy I idolized like is teaming with me, and like my whole family's there, my uncle's there, my mom's there, like my brothers were like just childhood friends were there. Like it was like you said, like if it all ended that night, like I would have been okay with it, luckily it didn't, but
now would have it meant more to you for him to be on the team like he was, or across the ring from you?
Today, I would have loved to have him across the ring. Then, definitely, I was not ready for that. Like I was way better off with him in my corner, because he was literally just like, as soon as I said I've only had like 4 matches, he just coached me the whole time. It was really cool to be like in there, and like at that point, like especially like 4 matches in, you kind of have your little match mapped out, and if something goes wrong, you don't know what the hell to do. Like something went wrong, like. The one thing I'm always good at, like I've always been good at, just like, especially if I'm in there with a vet, just listen. Like I'm not the one leading the match. Like I'm just listening and following whatever they say. And like, especially 4th match in, like I wouldn't have known what to do with Shane Douglas. I mean, I'm sure he could have carried me through a match, but like it was a way better experience that he was next to me, literally just coaching me the whole time. And then the pointers he gave us afterwards, and like gave us a little speech of like, this is where you start, but it's only up from here, guys. And then like Ken Anderson coming over and watch, like he literally just like, he didn't have to watch our match. Like he went there and watched our match. Like he didn't have to do that. He just did that out of the kindness of his heart. So I can never say a bad thing about Ken,
So you're wrestling and you're getting your feet wet. You have 4 matches at this point underneath your belt. Did you find that at that time getting booked was a difficult thing, or was it something that your name kind of quickly gets around certain circles and, hey, this person's a good worker, et cetera, people speak up for you, whatnot? How did you kind of start to get your name and your recognition out there that you're a person that somebody should hire?
Luckily enough, I just had people that ended up liking me and thought I was a good talent and I had a good look. So a lot of people would, extend the hand, be like, hey, like, there might not be pay for you or anything like that, but you could probably get on this show. So I was doing any show I possibly could. And like, it was not that tough to get booked at first for me. I would always reach out and say like, hey, I'll help set up the ring, I'll help take down the ring, as long as I got a look, just even like to talk to the promoter. And then I would end up, helping set up the ring, and then I'd be in a match, and then I'd end up getting booked on the show, either steady, or it may have been a one-time thing, and then somewhere down the road I came back.
I see that you've spent, some time in like True Wrestling and Pennsylvania Premier, obviously wrestling. We're going to get to that as far as well. But what are some other the places that you've worked in that you really, really enjoyed it from either the promoter standpoint or the camaraderie in the locker room or just the way the fans responded to you? What were some places that you were like, yeah, can't wait to come back here?
The Sanctuary was always big for me. I'm still there now. I'm their current like king at the time. That right now, that place I kind